So in today's video, we will learn about how to dip buy, when market sells off. We use wick strategy and Ripster clouds, which stocks to avoid the dip buys and which stocks to dip buy, and how to do the 9:30 a.m., 10 a.m. trade, long setups, and how to manage any pullbacks and take profits on those dip buys. So let's start with the Spy QQQ here. So let's look at SPY, QQQ, and futures. We provide all the levels and the planning in the pre-market. So let's start with the SPY QQQ bounce this morning, how we were able to nail the bounce on SPY, QQQs, NASDAQ futures, whatever you are trading. So let's take a look here. Before the market opened, I tweeted this plan out as well to my followers. So the plan was pretty simple today. On the market was VIX 2054 will be huge. No long as VIX holds 20. Only look for a long if VIX breaks 20 and market holds the pre-market lows. So that was a simple plan. We were using our VIX strategy. You know, if you see that what VIX did at the open today was, let's take a look here. So what VIX did at the open. So at the open, the VIX kind of bounced from 250 and faded back under 19. So 20, 50. The fade to 19, and that was opportunity to take a long trade on SPY QQQs. Was not a crazy trade here. Let's start with QQQs here. So as soon as I see that VIX is breaking down, I tell my traders long versus the pre-market lows. So you could long QQQs right here. This is where we longed it. This was our risk, pre-market lows right here. You know, so we're risking almost less than $1 here. And from there, the QQQ went all the way to 723. So you can see my timestamp guidance long on QQQs, and we always try to see what happens at 10 a.m. trend time. We hit our MTF magnet. This is a 2021 MTF. That was a good level to take some profits, take some off, because QQQ was hitting our MTFs there. So you could see that. So that was a long on QQQs. Same thing on SPY, because VIX was dumping. So I told the traders to long SPY as well. 512 calls, Ripster, 512 calls. These are Ripster clouds. And that also pushed. And then once it broke the 512s, we exited them. So even this one went from 734, almost $5 per share profit. And first half an hour, traders were done with those bounces. And this is my timestamp guidance, long versus pre-market lows. And then I told the traders, watch VIX 19. So what happened was VIX started to bounce off 19. So once the VIX started to bounce off 19, that was your time to start your profits at 10 a.m. Trend time and get out of that trade on SPY QQQ. And on this trade, you could trade NASDAQ futures, or you could trade ES futures. Anything was good. You can see that bounce here because there's a big gap down on the market and big gap up on the VIX. Whenever that happens, we use our VIX strategy. And this was very profitable trade. You see we exited under the 512 clouds. Pre-market planning, I tweeted it out and we followed it. This we have done thousands of times. This was not the first time we were doing it. So that's how we traded SPY QQQ, NASDAQ futures for a profitable long trade at the open. And we exited when the VIX bounced from 19. And rest of the day we avoided because it was just a chop up, down, up, down, up, down. So you need to identify, is it an all-day bounce or is it just the morning bounce and chop? And you see that the second bounce was again from the pre-market lows right here. You could trade that bounce a little bit, but the morning trade was the real trade here. So EWY was another one I was focused on. Whenever the market is trying to dipping, like it's gapping down so much, I look for high probability trade. If I'm trading ETFs, or I am looking for high probability stocks. But anyways, the main reason market was down was because of the Korea market and Korea ETF. So the Korea ETF is EWY. Again, this was on our plan as well. Let's look at our pre-market plan. So pre-market plan on Korea ETF. 200 Psych above, bearish bias to short, only long over 197 or 512 calls. So once I see that as pushing over this 512 calls right here, you can see that this is Ripster 512 calls. I told the traders to long versus 193. So we longed versus at right here at 195. We're risking like $2. It ran all the way to 2 or 201. Same thing as VIX is dropping. EWI is curling from the pre-market lows. And you could literally, risk $1,000 and make $2,000 on this move. You could trade the options as well, or you could trade the ETFs. Some traders like to trade leverage ETFs as well, Koru, but it was pretty high priced. EWY was a decent trade. Even if you had a few hundred shares, that was a fine trade there. And you see that we could never push over the 200 psychological level. So there's my timestamp guidance, pre-market planning. Thousands of traders took this trade. They're not waiting on me. They're already long on this trade. So after that, there's nothing much to do. So that's how you wrap it up after the first half an hour of trading. And we will know what happens tomorrow. Big earnings on Micron will make or break Korea tomorrow. Let's go to the next one. So like I talked about earlier, my focus was always high probability setup. So you need to, whenever market sells off, you need to pick your stocks that you really like. There are a lot of stocks which had upgrades today. It was crazy that after the upgrade, after this down day, a lot of banks, the banks are always scammy like that. They came in and they started to upgrade everything. Dell upgraded, Intel upgraded, Marvell, IBM, a lot of those names were upgraded this morning by the banks. My focus was Dell. The reason being because it's also a 400 psychological level. Morgan Stanley at tier 1 upgraded to 477, a huge upgrade. And so the plan on Dell was 400 cycle setup. If it breaks the pre-market lows, we will short it. We will long it over 400. So that was the plan. You see, plan was all in the pre-market. So as soon as I see that Dell is kind of, upgrade tier 1 setup, as soon as I see that Dell is kind of curling over that 512 clouds, pushing over 400 right away, I told the traders, 400 psychological long, it's Dell, right? First target I gave was MTF. You could add here at 402, 404, your risk is $4. By the end of the day, you're making $30 or $25. That's amazing risk reward. You're risking $4 and you're risking $20, $30. There's one risk to 4 or 5 reward. So you're risking $100, you can make $400. You're risking $1,000, you can make $4,000. So that was the trade, right? Ripster Clouds turned 400 psychological level. First target I gave the MTF, and as it moves up, we move the stops up. You see, I moved the stops to 407. I gave the target of 420. No hindsight. I gave the target of 420. Next target I gave was 425. We hit that target as well. My final target was 430, but we actually hit 435, and then we exited when we broke the 512. And 437 was my next target. But you see that we kept moving the stops up, 420, 428, and that was a pretty good, solid trade. Why was it? Why was the focus? It was gapping down, but it had a huge tier 1 upgrade, repeatable setup. You can repeat it for life. That's how you buy the dips on high probability setups, right? A lot of other names were bouncing as well. I mean, Intel was also another one, which was an upgrade name. You could see that INTC upgraded from to 160. So same thing. You focus on a tier 1 long, although it didn't run like Dell, but it was definitely a good setup to long in the morning at the open. All right, so let's look at a SPCX now. So first, before we do that, let's look at a SPCX, a daily chart here, before I dig down more into that SPCX trade. So let's take a look at here on the daily chart. So what do you see on daily chart? What you see on daily chart is, let's go to the 4 hours so it's more clear to you guys. So what you see is that it's been testing. It's testing the IPO open price, right? So this is the IPO open price, not really low. It's an IPO open price. So 150, right? This was the one which we traded from, as you know, and we've been shorting it since the 1 hour trend turned bearish. Right here, if I turn on Ripster EMA Clouds, we've been short, right? We've been shorting every day. You can watch my previous trade recaps and you will see it. But today what it was doing, was SPCX was doing, was it bouncing off that same exact level. Also 150 is a psychological level. So let's look at our pre-market plan here. SPCX number 1 day to play. Bearish buys to short under the pre-market lows or short the pops. IPO day low is important to watch. Long if it curls over 150 psychological level. So we have both the biases, right? We do not come with a fixed bias, although we know that 150 is a big level. So you see that SPCX initially we tried to short it, but once it reclaimed this 147, 148, you see the pre-market lows, reclaimed 150. I told the traders there's a big buyer at 150. Do not short it, exit any shorts, long, risk 147, long at 150, use a $3 risk, and from that long I gave the target of 160. We kept moving the stops to 152. We hit our 160 target, we even hit 164, and once it broke 512 right here, that's when I told the traders that we exit this trade, right? We kept moving the stops up. You see that stops under 154, 158, and then we hit I think there was another MTF above there. Let me see if there was one. Yeah, so we almost did a 1 hour MTF here. And you see MTF to the MTF. There's a lower MTF, not lower MTF, the 150 psychological support to the upper MTF target. So that's how you find those A plus setups. That's why I chose DELL, SPCX. There are many trades which we were not interested in, like AAOI. AAOI broke. So AAOI broke the daily support. So we were not interested to long it because it was riding the Ripster bearish clouds all day. Big difference compared to DELL and other names, and it was also breaking the daily support. So I'm not interested to buy. We tried the curls, but there were never really curls here. So it was heavy, the sector was heavy, so you avoid it, you stay away from that, those kind of names. Rocket Lab bounced initially but was a bearish. You see, rejected the MTF magnet. Daily is pretty bearish. So you need to understand which have chances to have show relative strength, and anything which is weak. For example, PLTR was pretty heavy. Once it broke 3450 clouds, broke the pre-market lows, there was no long in it. If you're trying to long these setups on a day like today, then that was a problem, right? So Tesla was not a long. Why? Breaking the pre-market lows under the 512 clouds. If you try to bounce Tesla all day, there was no long, right? If you see my pre-market guidance on Tesla, what I told the traders was only long if it reclaims 397, 395. And what did it do? Never reclaimed 395, actually rejected from there, all day fade. You could short it. So my traders, Ripster Cloud System, you do not trade when you want to have it over the 512 clouds, 3450 clouds, MTF clouds. You need to grade your setup, how bullish the setup is. This is not a bullish setup. Even if I'm trying to curl it, I will most likely lose, right? So you see what Tesla did here. So that's how you need to identify your bullish setups and which stocks to pick up when you're dip buying. Use the VIX strategy. Look at Amazon, did bounce but went into the chop of rest of the day. Understand if there's a chop. Understand if the price is stuck in the pre-market highs or lows. That's how you identify your best to trade long setups, and stay away. NBIS was a great bounce from the 512 calls. The traders traded it, but you could see that 512 calls and straight away up because the data centers were strong. Now photonics were not strong, so AAOI and other names were weak. Quantums were strong initially on the Trump news, but then later they gave up. Only the amateur move was strong. So that's how you focus on the top plays. Sometimes it works, but the catalyst names have a higher chance of working. So hopefully that helps you. Avoid the bearish trend, avoid the bearish stocks, look for the good long setups. All right, thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.